morning, everybody. Hopefully, everyone's doing good. It's another day, another dollar, as they say. So, welcome to everyone in the chat. We will be tackling chapter 5 and 6 today. I think we should be able to get to 6 today. It depends. 5 is pretty short, and so is 6. So, it's not very long, but it is involved. So, it may end up taking 2. Um, so, we'll get right into it. Ain't no need for long speeches upon speeches upon speeches, right? All right, chapter 5. Therefore, be imitators of God as dear children, and walk in love as Christ also has loved us and given himself for us, an offering and a sacrifice to God for a sweet smelling aroma. Um, some I'm like I said, every time I speak, it's because of something either someone has told me or I was led to believe. And one of those things is the walking in love as an act, not as a result. I don't know if that makes sense. We sometimes can try to make ourselves walk in love, and we actually ignore the inviting the person who embodies love to do the walking for us. And so when we fail, um, we have an even bigger downside to it because of how much trouble we encounter. Because we say, "Oh, I failed this and I failed that," and yeah, because you would have to. That's in and of yourself. You will fail. There's no other option but failure. You may have momentary successes that you may consider you prevailing in something, but in essence, you're supposed to be walking in the person of love, which is Christ. And I think too many times we want to and try and embody it ourselves when we have no concept of what it really is. Decline. But fornication and all uncleanness and covetousness, let it not be even named among you, as is fitting for saints. Neither filthiness or foolish talking or coarse jesting, which are not fitting, but rather giving of thanks. For this for this you know that no fornicator, unclean person, nor covetous man, who is an idolater, has any inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and God. Let no one deceive you with empty words, for because of these things the wrath of God comes upon the sons of disobedience. Therefore, do not be partakers with them. When you look at this layout, filthiness, coarse joking, foolish talk, there are levels that people place things on when it comes to these things. Excuses. Um, Either the environment you're in and it's allowed, it's a work thing, um, it's during sports, um, a certain type of friend. And all of them are what we should consider an excuse. And now um, I did some looking into that whole coarse jesting thing. And the concept behind it is lewd or um, crass or sexual in nature, is what they considered by the Greek coarse jesting. It's not fitting because it's not edifying, and it is a portion of your old self. The allowance of it, even around you, like I said, not even to be named among you, is a big deal because what we like to be told that you need to be able to be friends with people in the world. You're the example. You can't talk ill about people in their life because you're not living their life. You accept them as they are. That's what we're always told, right? But wouldn't that be considered being named among you? So do you limit the way your friends speak around? Yes. Yes. Yeah. You have to. Do you always succeed in that? No, no. Many of us, well, we're dealing with other people. But there is a line. There is a line. And we have to stay true to that line. For you were once darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Walk as children of light, for the fruit of the Spirit is in all goodness and righteousness and truth, finding out what is acceptable to the Lord, and have no fellowship. We've talked about some time ago about pastors who say they have queer congregants and members of the LGBTQ community. I wonder what he would say about this verse and have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them. For it is shameful to even speak of those things which are done by them in secret. But all things that are exposed are made manifest by the light, for whatever makes manifest is light. Therefore, he says, awake you who sleep, arise from the dead, and Christ will give you light. A lot of people are afraid of Ephesians for that reason. The reason they're afraid of it, because it's calling you to action. It's calling you to do something. It's calling you to separate. But what does separation mean? Separation means I have to weed out. Hmm. And I have to weed out things that were what I once was. I can't even have fellowship with it. Can't even be associated with it. Can't be named among it. Do you realize the extent that you have to go to? Now, question, is it something that you have to do, or is it something that you automatically understand that will be done with the handing over? He'll address it right here. See then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be unwise, but understand what the will of the Lord is, and do not be drunk with wine, in which is dissipation, but be filled with the Spirit, speaking to one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing, making melody in your heart to the Lord, giving thanks for all things to God the Father in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, submitting to one another in the fear of God. In the fear of God. We don't like to talk about fear either. We spoke some time ago about being afraid, a reverent fear of God. And I mean absolute terror. The difference between him saying that he did not give us a spirit of fear has nothing to do with fear of him. One is warranted, one is perceived. Our innate human fear keeps us from doing the things he called us to do. It keeps us from talking to people because we don't want them to judge us. We're afraid they'll judge. We're afraid they'll reject. We're afraid they'll act out. We are afraid of people. That's the fear he did not give us. A reverent and holy fear of one who can slice you to bits, soul, and marrow. That's warranted fear. And the kind of fear we ought to have. Here's why. He is fully capable and warranted in doing it, and doesn't because of the blood of his son. You ever witnessed a mean looking dog? Like it's the big, dark, black dogs. They got the collar around their neck. Their neck's about the size of a tree trunk. You've seen them. Big, really, really just imposing figures of dogs. And they have this look on their face. And the only reason that you don't get attacked by that dog is because the owner knows you. The owner knows you. And there is a protection on you because that dog is aware of your connection to the person he listens to. Now, I'm not saying that God listens to it. Now, get my point here. There is something to say about a figure that can and without restraint will destroy you. With no markers to protect you, it can and will destroy you. But it doesn't because something outside of you protects you. There is something that you didn't do that protects you from that dog. The blood of Christ is protecting you from the wrath that is fully due to you. But do not get this twisted. He is still the God that can destroy both body and soul. Do not ever forget yourself and don't remember who he is. Therein lies the reason to be fully and unequivocally afraid. Now, we have touched on this particular verse before, so I'm not going to harp too much on it. I'm just going to ask you to listen to it and let it resound as it is. Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for her, that he might sanctify and cleanse her with the washing of water by the word, that he might present her to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that she should be holy and without blemish. So husbands ought to love their own wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. For no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes it and cherishes it, just as the Lord does the church. For we are members of his body, of his flesh, and of his bones. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. This is a great mystery, but I speak concerning Christ and the church. Nevertheless, let each one of you in particular so love his own wife as himself, and let the wife see that she respects her husband. Again, I'm not going to get into too much detail about that section because I have already. And if you need reference to that, it's in prior month's videos. But the breakdown here links back to one very vital thing: knowing Christ. See, the husband cannot love their wife as Christ loved the church if he does not know how Christ loved the church. You want to know why it is that worldly people are not married, in my opinion? Because the institution of it is a God-centric union. It has nothing to do with how I feel about the person. It is about my charge. It is my charge. Because my feelings can fluctuate based on the person's action. My charge does not change. My responsibility does not change. My view will not change if I see the union the way Christ sees the church. The exact same way, the wife will have no problem submitting to her husband if she sees him the correct way and her role the correct way. It is all based on our connection to Christ. If you don't have that, everything else will be based on your feelings. Everything else. And at a moment's notice, that person can mess with your feelings and everything goes south. Our charge in marriage never changes. It will never change because he doesn't change. It can never change because he doesn't change. We love to change it. We'd love to, but it doesn't change. Chapter 6. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Does it seem a little bit odd that every time he speaks about doing something, he mentions a location? Because it really is only possible to do what he's requesting in that location. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. You are obeying them from a position of in the Lord. This is why you train up a child in the way he should go. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise that it may be well with you and you may live long on the earth. And you, fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath, but bring them up in the training and admonition of the Lord. Now, when I first became a father, my description of provoking my child was always linked to their upbringing from things like um, being an annoying parent until the kid gets mad, and that would be provoking my child to wrath. And it wasn't until later on that I realized that that had nothing to do with what this was saying. And I came to that conclusion on the opposite side of what it says, but bring them up into training and admonition. Because if I'm not bringing them up in the training and admonition of the Lord, then I must be doing something of the counter, which is bringing them up in the world. And if we are by nature children of wrath and objects of wrath because of his judgment, it must mean that I am provoking my children to wrath by not bringing them up in the training and admonition of the Lord. My job is very specific. I do not believe that this is saying that the children will get angry to the point of wrath. I believe that this is provoking them unto the state of wrath upon them. And I can indeed lead my children to a position where they are rebellious and become objects of his wrath. Bond servants, be obedient to those who are your masters according to the flesh, with fear and trembling, in sincerity of heart, as to Christ, not with eye service as men pleasers, but as bond servants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart, with goodwill doing service as the Lord and not to men, knowing that whatever good anyone does, he will receive the same from the Lord, whether he is a slave or free. And you, masters, do the same things to them, giving up threatening, knowing that your own master also is in heaven, and there is no partiality with him. Just as a point of reference, this is not um, what we would consider slavery. This is indentureship. In many cases, it was a debt to be paid, and you went into servitude to pay that debt. Yes, there was slavery. There has been slavery for forever. If you remember, Joseph was sold into slavery to the Egyptians, eventually getting there. Every time, though, we talk about the believer's walk, there is a aiming. There's an aiming. You're doing everything for Christ. And if that be the case, it does not matter your location. And I don't mean spiritual location. I mean your point where you are in life. Leader, servant, bond, or free. Master, or subservient. We in the modern world are hell bent on social issues and doing right by men by a manly standard. And what we don't realize is by doing things at a manly standard, it will and will always fail. Always. You can try and justify and repair things that are wrong all day long. Go for it. But it's not coming from a place of permanent change. It's coming from a place of pressure, coercion. When it comes from a life change, however, automatic. You wouldn't even have to implant laws. That's the cool thing about this. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Everything's locational. In his might, in the Lord. Put on the whole armor of God that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. Stand, therefore, having girded your waist with truth, having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and having shod your feet with the preparation of the gospel of peace. Above all, taking the shield of faith, with which you will be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked one, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, praying always with all the prayer and supplication in the Spirit, being watchful to this end with all perseverance and supplication for all the saints, and for me, that utterance may be given to me, that I may open my mouth boldly to make known the mystery of the gospel, for which I am an ambassador in chains, that in it I may speak boldly as I ought to speak. When God gives you instructions about how to handle a situation, He does not leave it to you to figure out how. he, he gives you every tool you need to figure this out. You're looking at this layout, and we talked about this too before. You look at this layout, every vital organ is protected. Every vital organ is protected. Every part of it. Your heart, your groin, your feet, your head. And for every other part, a shield. You are fully encompassed when you put on what He gave you to wear. If you don't put on what He gave you to wear, do not expect protection. And I've said this before, the equipment He gave you was built in protection mode. And not just protection mode, it is also has an assault mode. It has protection, it has assault, it has retreat, and it has advance. All of it is probably one of the most robust and well-rounded agents of defense you could ever wear. Ever. But some of us just don't feel like putting it on. And then we don't put it on, and then I'm injured. I got shot. The devil's after me again. Did you put on the helmet? Oh, he's in my mind. Did you put on the helmet? No. Put on the helmet. My heart really wants it. Did you put on the breastplate? No. Then put on the breastplate. I can't go where he wants me to go. Did you put on the shoes? No. Then put on the shoes. Why is it so difficult to just do what the man said? Like, come on. But then we want to blame him for not being there. Where was God where were you when he told you to put on the stuff he told you to put on? Where were you? When he asked you to walk a certain way, when he asked you to walk in the Spirit, why didn't you do that? Now you're getting the results of not walking it. You're blaming him? All of a sudden now you've lost faith? You never had it. Faith would have made you put on everything he gave you to put on to protect yourself. That's all. So don't blame him. Blame yourself for being stupid and not listening. That's on you. Always will be on you. Well, I became an atheist after God didn't answer my prayer. then you were looking to God as a genie, which tells me you did not know him. So it's not like you stopped following him. You weren't following him to begin with. Your knowledge of God went as far as someone told you. That's it. Your knowledge of God went as far as someone told you. You never took that step after receiving information to go before the throne and encounter God for yourself. You never did that. Never. But that you also may know my affairs and how I am doing. Tychicus, a beloved brother and fellow and faithful minister in the Lord, will make all things known to you, whom I have sent to you for this very purpose, that you may know our affairs and that he may comfort your hearts. Peace be to the brethren and love with faith from God the Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. Grace be with you and all those who love our Lord Jesus Christ in sincerity. It's kind of odd. People might think that he tagged all this information in here, but that's what we would call transparency. And realizing that even the juggernauts that we considered them, they needed the saints. They needed them. You want to know my struggles, boom. We are knit together. We may each have been brought in and grafted in as a separate portion, but when you became a part of that tree, we struggled together. And it's not even so much that we struggle, because once you've joined the tree never struggles. This particular tree that you are grafted into never lacks water, never lacks sun, never lacks shade, has amazing soil, and it never stops feeding its branches. You are grafted into an ever thriving tree. The struggle that we anticipate or experience is our rebellion and our unwillingness to give up something that we want to hold on to. Some may not see it as what you want to hold on to. You might be saying, well, I really want to quit this and I really want to stop that. And I really want and I really want and I really want. The question is not whether you really want, because I honestly believe, coming from somebody who's used that same term before, you don't really want. You feel you should, but you don't really want. Because if you really wanted it to end, you would realize it's ended. If you really wanted that struggle to be over, you would realize that it's over. As much as I don't like certain directors and all that stuff, there was a scene in the Matrix, the original Matrix, where Neo went to talk to the Oracle. And he encountered this little bald child. And the child was just bending the spoon. And he wanted to know how the child was doing that. And the child went into this soliloquy about how if you just realize that it's not so much that I'm bending the spoon, it's what is realizing the one truth that you're not willing to accept. What? that there is no spoon, that the spoon is made up. The spoon is no longer really there. You are part of something that is kept in place to try and deter you from the truth. And while that's a sentiment that's applied to that scene in the movie, let's take that and superimpose it for a minute. Consider the spoon sin. Now, in your sinful world, that spoon exists. It is very real. It will not just bend by your thoughts moving it around. But when you realize that you are no longer in the real world or in the sinful world, and you realize that all the entrapments of your sin was removed in the blood of Christ, there is no longer any spoon. The spoon no longer has the grip. It no longer has the rigidity. It no longer has what it used to have. But what it really comes down to is us trusting God for who He is. And if you cannot get to that point, there are hundreds and thousands of things that you will never experience because you don't genuinely understand He is who He says He is. Knowing your place is essential. And whether you want to admit it or not, or like it or not, we have a place that's below. We are the created. He is the creator. And while He may have taken us and branded us with the mark of His Son, we are still created. And we have to act and live accordingly with that truth. You are not a God. You never will be. He is. And by all accounts, you ought to be dead. I ought to be dead. Smitten, stricken. Instead, He took it. And here you are. If you are fighting a vice, a problem, a struggle, ask yourself one very vital question. Just ask yourself this. Sit with yourself for a minute and ask, is this problem, this addiction, this struggle beyond God's capability to tame? And if it is not beyond His capability to tame, what's keeping it from being tamed? You are. I am. If nothing is beyond His reach, nothing is beyond His control, nothing is beyond His domain, how are you struggling? When you are in His life, how are you struggling? Ask yourself the question how you're struggling. The struggle is in not seeing God as God. You don't see God as God. You don't. And now this is part of the journey. You have to come to grips with what you see God as. You have to. Because if you continue lying to yourself that you've seen Him in this way, but that's not how you're seeing Him, but you're living your life as though you do, there's a problem. You sing the songs about God and how great He is and amazing, but you don't live it because you don't really believe it. but understanding it, saying, hey, I don't see you the way I should see you, God. And this is, you can look, this is the great thing about Him. You can go to God and tell Him because He already knows where exactly you are. I believe, help my unbelief kind of thing. But when you see Him for who He is and what He is, there is no longer a struggle to give up the things that are not of Him. It is not a struggle. Let's not get it twisted. The things of the world are enticing. He said so. They're enticing. And you're still going to be encased in this meat skin for a while. And with this meat skin comes the enticement of the world. Understood. That's why it says, greater is the one living inside of me than he who's living in the world, right? Okay, good. If that's the case, there is no struggle. When was the last time you ever struggled with a 1-year-old? I mean, I understand that they're incredibly strong with their binkies and stuff like that. I get that. And that's all jokes aside. But any adult can overpower a 1-year-old. Satan is as strong as a 1-year-old, and God is as strong as an adult. there's, there's no struggle. there, there is no struggle for him to handle the devil in your life. There's no struggle for him whatsoever. He doesn't struggle against the devil. He destroys him. The question is, are you allowing him to do what he's got to do? You may not want to give him that kind of power. You may just like what you have. And again, that comes with you admitting it. You have to admit it, that you like your sin more than you love God. And if that's a starting point. It's a starting point. Admittance. That's the first space. I am not where I should be because I don't see God the way I ought to. But when you see him and you realize that the devil has no power and there is no spoon, you don't have the struggle. You recognize it's there. You see it for what it is. You see it's trying to get to you, and you understand that it's enticing to you. You get all that. That's 100% true. But then the reality shows in that I don't have to follow through with it, though. Yeah, it's there. I can see it. I witnessed it. Yeah. And it's part of my mind thinking that it crossed my mind. Yep. I don't have to give into that. That reality sets in enough and it stops pervading your thoughts. It literally just stops. It doesn't grip you like it did. Get to know your father, get in his life, stay in his life, wear the protection clothing he gave you, and realize that there is nothing bigger than God. Not people's judgment of you, not your past. Nothing is bigger. Not your view of yourself. I can limit your growth, but it's not bigger than God. If you see him, you will have no problem following him. But you have to see him. And if that has to be a prayer, let it be a prayer. Let it be a prayer. Tomorrow we're going to tackle Daniel, mostly the first chapter, because there is a couple of things I want to tackle about it, not just the person of Daniel, but there are quite a few things that took place in that first chapter that people have taken to mean that we are supposed to be a certain way in order to be God's, not capital G, but belong to God. And Dan is a prime example of what's bad and what's good to participate in. So I just kind of want to dive into that just a little bit. Um, so far, also next year, the family event is coming along. I'm slowly piecing my team together, um, and it looks like it's going to end up being really good. Hopefully, there will be a good turnout. Hopefully, people will want to be there. Because I had a discussion with my wife just last night about it, and her reluctance to do certain things came from a location of, well, I don't have this down perfect, so why would I? Um, how would I be a good voice to talk and all that stuff, right? And I told her, well, it's because you've had the experience of not having it right that makes you qualified. The same way as I want to know what qualified Saul to be Paul. What qualified a Christian murderer, a murderer of the believers? What caused him to be qualified for God to reach out to him? What qualified him? We want to quantify our belonging and we want to quantify our worth on our schedule. That's not how this works. Moses wasn't qualified to speak, he used Moses. There are tons of misfits in his kingdom. Sorry, that were misfits. There were tons of people that were misfits. Tons of them. In fact, they're littered everywhere. Some of the biggest misfits that he recruited. Perfection is not the requirement to enter. Perfection is in him. So none of us would be qualified anyway. None of us would be qualified anyway to be recruited prior to his life. None of us. So next year we'll be hosting that. So I'll give you a layout of what I've seen it so far. I want to have people understanding what's going to take place so that you can decide whether it's something that you want to be a part of or not. And since you have a whole year to plan, you have a whole year to pray. Um, the first day, and we're trying to have it the last week or second to last week, where it looks like right now in July, from the 24th to the end of the week. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, possibly Saturday, but definitely Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And the Wednesday will be all speakers. The Thursday will be breakout sessions. And then the Friday will bring those breakout sessions back together, and each family will have a time to sit with each other and go over what they were spoken to about in their breakout session. So the men will have something to discuss with the wives and the children about. The children will be able to discuss with mom and dad, and the wife will be able to discuss with the kids and the father. I don't know that it's going to be virtual yet. I have to figure all that out. Um, but for now, um, the problem with the virtual thing is that the breakout session will be kind of difficult to do on a virtual setting. I might be able to podcast the first day where it's all the speakers, but I don't know that I'll be able to do the breakout sessions, and especially the last day where everyone's having their individual conversations with their family. And because of where I live, there's beautiful water, so we might just make a whole family day and quarantine off a place down by the water and just go play, hang out in the park. There's a park right across the street from the location that I'm looking at, and we have a nice big lake there, and you guys can hang out. So it'll be a good event either way. We'll get to know each other, get to be familiar with the family, and it's not just the straight talk family. It'll be the Too Strong family as well. So anyone wanting to come, get your family on the right track, um, hang out with some people who are in the same road as you are, going along this life, trying to navigate it with God. It's a great thing. It's a great thing. I think it'll end up being a really good bonding event. Um, it'll bring people who are just names on a in a chat room, and you get to know those people personally. Um, it is probably one of the biggest things I'm looking forward to. I wouldn't call it a beach. I wouldn't call it a beach. And the nearest beach we have is 3 hours away. The real beach is about 3 hours away. This is glacier water. It's gonna be a little cool, but it's hot, so it's gonna be a little cool. The water gonna be cool, and the hair is gonna be hot, so it'll be, Ask Corey about that. I don't know if you can catch a ride with him or not. You can ask Corey, but he will be one of the speakers. I want you all to know that Corey will be one of the speakers. Myself will be as well. My wife will be, and one other. Um, my pastor's wife will be speaking as well. So we're gonna have a good split, 2 and 2. And then I have 2 other men doing breakouts for the men, and I'm going to get 2 other women to do the breakouts for them, the women, and then one guy for the kids. And he's really good. I'm going to ask him in the next couple of days here if he could do it. So hopefully you all can make it, and hopefully it won't be a deterrent when you see that it's going to be a little bit of a cost just to cover the place and all that stuff. So again, you can make a decision um, about it, but I think it will be a good thing. Um, it'll be a really good thing. I think it'll be a good thing for us as a family to understand that we need to help each other out, be there for each other, and know each other. This is okay. This interaction is fine, but it'll be good to meet in person. I look forward to meeting some of you. Some of, no, I'm just kidding. Some of you, not all of you. Some of you are afraid to meet. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm not afraid to meet you. Okay, so hey, I will always take security, Jamal. I mean, I have a guy. I have a guy. Well, I have 2 guys, and they are they're gonna come with their stuff. I will always take security, not a problem at all. So start looking at the area. Um, it's called Wenatchee, Wenatchee, Washington. Wenatchee, Washington. You can start looking at the area. Start looking around. I'm going to be talking to a bunch of the hotels around town to see if they can give group discounts and stuff. And if I do manage to find a few that will give group discounts, I'll pass it on to you. Okay, I will pass it on to you, um, and so you can know where to go. You're a big dude, man. I'm not that a big dude. I'm a small kid. I'm tiny. I'm a little frail human being. I'm a frail guy. I'm weak, so I will definitely need security because I'm. You see me? I'm small, skinny, tired. Just wussy. So I could use some people that are intimidating figures. No doubt about that. So in any case, love you guys. I really do mean that. Um, we will probably possibly be on Too Strong twice today. Um, possibly. So just keep an eye out. Okay. Keep an eye out. We might be going live after this. How many animals? Just let me know. How many animals do you have? If you really want to be there, trust me, we can more than likely make something happen to where your animals are taken care of. Just hit me up on my inbox. Send me an email. Okay. Send me an email. And I guarantee you we can figure something out. There's the email streaming at the bottom there. Okay. I think it'd be cool if you could still make it. So you can probably figure something out with your kids. I know they're your children. Okay. Animals are children. My other two kids, my dog and my cat, they're my family. So, don't mess with my dog and my cat. I'll mess you up. So anyway, we'll catch you guys later on, definitely tonight on Too Strong, possibly in the next hour and a half on Too Strong. Yeah. And I did update my website to include the countdown for the event. So go take a look at the event calendar, and I'll keep dropping as I get things figured out. I'll put them out there for you guys to, and as soon as I get the sign up location and everything figured out of payments and all that stuff, and get your tickets and all that stuff, we'll make sure we have that all on the website. So keep an eye on the website. Let me try and grab the website here. Before anything else, I want to make sure I get the right website because I changed the name today. Okay, here it is. It was Tell It Like It Is, and I recently changed it today. So there is the website. I'm going to adjust it on my page as well on YouTube, so that people are not at a loss, so they can click still on the what you call it, the link that's there. Make sure I get the website. There it is. And so it's there now. So now it's updated on my Facebook, on my YouTube page. Okay. So the channel, the website is now Straight Talk MB. So go check it out and get the countdown, bookmark it so you can get updates about the event, and so on. So see you guys tomorrow for Daniel, and later today for Too Strong. Thank you again for all of your input, your assistance, your help financially, all of it. It all is a really good reminder of when we talk to God about stuff that he provides for his people. So thank you. Wisdom calls to you from the streets. So please, please, please find wisdom. Peace.
Hold tight the dreams, for if dreams die, rely on yourself.